Hey everyone, Cody Hayes here, and I'd like to welcome you to part 3 as we look at rights, justice, and Aristotle's golden mean. And this is where we left off. We left off really the last bits of rights that we have, but essentially how, the government or the community has the right to pass laws which can take away a person or, a group's freedoms. And we looked at, the liberty limiting principle, the harm principle, and then legal paternalism. Well, to continue on with justice, we have the term that is known as social contract, the social contract. Well, the social contract is essentially individuals coming together and producing a document or an oral agreement which all are expected to abide by. The United States Constitution is a form of the social contract. But to explain it a little bit more, and this is something which is arguably a criticism of the social contract, the notion is that we are all naturally self-centered, so there's a type of psychological egoism here, and that when we feel we have been wrong, like if I feel you have wronged me, my natural inclination is to get revenge on you in some manner, whatever that manner may be. But according to the social contract, whether that's the written document or an oral agreement, no, I'm not going to do that. That if I feel that I've been wronged, that here's what I'm supposed to do according to the document or the oral agreement, and if I don't follow through with that, then I'm going to be in trouble under the social contract. So, it's a document or some type of oral agreement, and all are expected to abide by it. And if they don't abide by it, then they are going to find themselves in trouble. Next couple terms, which I'll put together, we have the backward view of justice. And the backward view of justice is attempts to distribute justice by correcting wrongs in the past, which will hopefully lead to future benefits. And by contrast, you have the forward view of justice. And the forward view of justice attempts to distribute justice by looking at the present, what is going on now, and then hopefully creating benefits in the future. To give an example of the backward view of justice and the forward view of justice in action, I think of the program of affirmative action. And affirmative action is, as it's designed, as it's written, to give support, extra help to non-white males. But often at times, I think that we think of it in terms of race relations. And where the program started was in 1965, if memory serves me correct, as part of LBJ's, Lyndon Baines Johnson's Great Society, and how he, sold, I guess you could say, the concept of affirmative action is he created a scenario where you have a 100-yard dash between Mr. Black and Mr. White. And as Mr. Black and Mr. White get ready to go up to the starting line to begin the dash, all of a sudden the referee says, no, no, wait a minute, Mr. White. You get to go up to the 25-yard line. And Mr. Black is sitting back, well, what about me? Oh, well, you have to stay there. And then, of course, the gun goes off to start the race, and Mr. Black has to catch up to Mr. White. And the scenario being presented here is, that's not very fair to Mr. Black, is it? Well, what Johnson was getting at was he was looking at, the past relationships between whites and blacks, as of course their names, Mr. White and Mr. Black, are reference to the races, and that, blacks have in a sense been held back by racist policies or just the concept of racism from, the past. And so what Johnson wanted to do was he wanted to try and correct the wrongs of the past by giving those, who have been wrong from those past events, some advantage to help them catch up. So Johnson's policy there would be in the backward view of justice. Now, to look at the same policy, but in this case a view of it from the forward view of justice, look at a writing that the late Supreme Court Justice Anton Scalia made. This is before he became a Supreme Court Justice, but he wrote a piece on affirmative action. And he made the argument that it should not be based on race or gender alone. It should be based on each individual's circumstance. Basically, he gives the scenario that, helping out a poor inner city black kid, that's fine. Much like it's also fine to help out a poor rural white kid. But helping out someone like Michael Jordan's kids, no, that they don't need the help. But your poor inner city black kid does, and your poor rural white kid does. That it should be looked at what's going on right now. Not just based on race and gender alone, but on individual circumstances. So, again, that would be, the forward view of justice. What is the situation now? Not looking at what happened in the past, but what is happening now. And from there, we will, or hopefully we will create, the benefits for the future. Continue on. Have deterrence. Well, deterrence is a form of justice which is swift and strict. It may involve the use of fear, but it has the intent to stop bad behavior from being repeated. Let me have a quick sip of water and I'll focus on the concept here of deterrence. Well, one example I think of deterrence, and I can see some individuals making a criticism of this particular method, particularly with the use of fear. But I think of situations where the police have been called to, say, the shopping mall because some kids, young kids, but kids just past the age of reason, you could say, so 8, 9, maybe 10-year-olds, who attempted to shoplift and were caught. And so the police come and they'll often, yell at them, scare them, but their goal is to get them to cry. And when I've listened to interviews where, the officers have talked about that, they have said before, once we get them to cry, we, in a sense, have done our job. Because, they don't take them to jail per se. They just get them to cry to tell them, what's going to happen if you do this again. And the crying lets them know they won't repeat it because they're scared of what will happen. Some might question the ethics of that, but still, that is a form of deterrence. Swift and strict, may involving the use of fear, but hopefully it will stop bad behavior from being repeated. Another term we have here is rehabilitation. Well, rehabilitation is the notion that individuals undergo counseling. Sometimes it can be the use of jail in order to stop their bad behavior and become a normal part of society. The use of jail that I have here might work better with the next term, incapacitation, but it is often at times used in the rehabilitation form of justice, where basically it's used as a type of shock treatment. That, a person is sentenced to spend so much amount of time in jail, whether it's a few days, to basically tell them, hey, stop. Stop what you're doing and become a normal part of society. But counseling is also, of course, used to, counseling to help stop bad behavior as well, too. Well, in any case, we have to stop here. And when we come back, we should finish up what we have left with this lecture. So take care. I will symbolically see you then.